setting goals, perhaps one of the most important things that is so obvious, but for whatever reason, we just decide to brush it off. At least I know that for myself, it's always difficult to sit down and write out things in a more detailed way. For whatever reason, there's always some other activity that needs to get done beforehand whenever I think of that. Now, before we get into the actual minutia of this, I should say that with setting goals, this is really, 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 really important, mostly because without goals, we really have no actual roadmap to where we want to go. It all starts with a vision. And with that vision, can it be a little bit out of line? Yes. Can it be a little bit ridiculous? Yes. But at the end of the day, it gives us something to be working towards. And without it, there's of course no guarantee, or sorry, there's no overarching, rhyme or reason between what you're trying to do on a day-to-day basis. It makes it very difficult to sift through in a decision-making process because there's no value hierarchy to be governing things off of. So here's the thing. The setting goals is mostly important because it drives everything else that follows. And with that, you'll have a lot more, or at least I know that from my own experience, I have a lot more laser-like focus with what I want to do or the decisions that I'm going to be making, because I know if that is going to directly help me with the goal or not. And of course, that can lead down some other weird thought processes as well. But right now I want to focus on goal setting. So we've spoken about why it's important, but more importantly, how do you actually do it? How do you set goals? Well, there's actually no real rhyme or reason to doing it. And I would even go as far as saying that it's not even that important to make your goals at the beginning super, well, the word that I'm looking for here is super relatable, I suppose. And what do I mean by that? I mean that when you first begin, you're naturally not going to have really a good idea at all because you're just beginning and you really only learn while you're on the path. But getting that initial vision of where you want to be, it's typically where we come at this with, although you can apply goal setting to just about anything, but usually, some sort of a vision of who you want to be or where you want to be. That is what provides the true North Star principles that essentially govern life. So when it comes down to it, I would say start off badly. It's okay. You're naturally going to correct your course as time goes on and you find out what works and what doesn't work, and as you learn more about yourself, because it's likely that if you haven't ever gone through the process of setting your own goals, then you probably have very little idea of who you actually are. If you've really never spent that much time, in your own company and really thinking about these things without the external influences of the world, then it's just natural that you're not gonna know that. You have to be able to you have to go through some of those experiences in order to be more in tune with that. But setting goals can be a good gateway to getting to that to those realizations in that state. So start off badly, and it doesn't really matter what you're going towards. Just get it down on paper, get it down on your phone notes or your computer notes, whatever it might be, whatever speaks best to you, whatever's easiest for you, get it down on there. Because once you have it down on some sort of document, it makes it real. And when it's real, it feels like it has a life of its own, and it feels like now if you are working towards it or working against it. When you've explicitly stated your goals, now you have quite literally a very, 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 very clear way of figuring out whether you're on track or not, which can be very scary. And this is why I think it's also, it's difficult. It's a difficult task to do, even though it's really, you're not actually even doing anything really. You're just fucking writing down some things of what you want to do. You're not even actually doing them. But for whatever reason, there's usually a mental block that I face when I go through that goal setting process. But I found that it's the reason why that is, or at least the most likely reason why that is because when you put that goal down on paper, when I put that goal down on paper, I know very specifically, if I am working towards that goal or not. And while it is down on paper, it's of course not necessarily real, but the only way that it becomes real is if you work towards it. So with that said, it always it essentially creates that paradigm and that sort of template for which to build off, the day to day. It's not going to be very difficult to figure out exactly how you want to structure your day or what decisions you want to be making if you are very explicit in your goals on the day. You either know, does this one push me closer to that or further away from it? It's one or the other. There's no in between. Or at least, sometimes you might not actually know yourself. You might have false impressions, but at least you have something to be basing off of, which you can correct later. That's the important part that's the important point that I'm trying to make right now. And so the way to do this is, as I said, start poorly and then be very quick to self-correct as time goes on as you put in the work towards it. And with every decision that I go through on a day-to-day basis, I would always ask myself, does this push me closer to the goals that I currently have or further away? And it's very easy to discount something that pushes me further away. It's no longer a very attractive idea. I'll give you a great example that I think a lot of people can probably relate to, and that is going to the gym. When I first began going to the gym, I wrote it down on paper, like what I wanted to look like, what I wanted my what I wanted my weight to look like, what I wanted my body fat to look like, all those sorts of things. And at the beginning, did I have any fucking clue of what I was doing? No, I thought that you could look like Arnold Schwarzenegger with like 2 years of working out experience. That's never going to happen. but at least it gave me, something to start off of. And so when I would when I'd get up in the morning and I would see, my goals, which were, I usually have them on my phone, usually like somewhere that would be forced in front of my face. And I would think to myself, fuck, I really don't want to go to the gym today. And this was like before I really ever started. And it was far from a habit at this point, but I'd be thinking to myself, fuck, I really don't want to go to the gym. Like, I don't feel like it. I got homework. I got this and that to do. And then this is happening. And, all these excuses rise to my mind. But then I realized, if I don't go to the gym, this goal does not get done. And if this goal does not get done, then I will never have that. And it's just that simple. It's just that fucking simple. Now, of course, that goal of looking like an Arnold Schwarzenegger, which was actually never really my goal, but I did think that was like possible within the first couple of years, which is really, really crazy looking back on it. But that evolved over time to kind of where I am right now. And that was my first major experience with actually setting a legitimate goal and then working towards it on a day-by-day basis while also self-correcting and documenting that as time goes on. So that is really the basis of constructing a life as you want to live it, because you can do that with every little facet of your being, quite literally of your life, I suppose. So when it comes down to it, setting goals doesn't just apply for, how you want to look. Obviously, it also applies for your finances, for your mental health, for your spiritual health, for your, for your health, of course, as well. For whatever you want your life to look like, there can always be a goal setting process, which in turn spurns about the actual progress towards it. Now you can actually have something to measure against. And over time, you can see, am I getting closer towards this or not? And it all starts with the very simple process of literally not even doing it, of just fucking writing down what you want. So I would strongly suggest, and I do this myself every few months, I do this in a more concerted way. I will sit down with myself in a more meditative state, in a more meditative mind frame, and list out my goals. And sometimes they'll be the same as what they were before. Sometimes they'll change. And sometimes, I'll bring back goals that I had from like years ago, or sometimes I will, or sometimes I'll have something completely different, trying something completely new. But that always keeps the ball rolling and always kind of keeps that perpetual carrot on a stick right in front of myself, which makes me feel like I am progressing towards something that I am, I want to be like. And so that is the way. That is sort of the way to make a blueprint for your life that I found that actually works. And yes, it's not to say that you don't have to do the work. You'll have to do all the work. I mean, the work's kind of the easy part. The first part is just admitting to yourself that you're probably not where you want to be, or at least I know that I'm not fully where I want to be, really at any point in my life, because otherwise I guess you just kind of fall over and die, I suppose. But it's always been an ever evolving type thing that over time not only helps me get to where I want to go, but also kind of becomes like a self-reinforcing and positive spiral of of goal setting, attaining that goal, and then realizing, reflecting on that goal that, hey, I did this. And if I did this, then perhaps I could do this, and perhaps I could do that. And it will naturally evolve over time. And that is why it's so damn important, because you will naturally evolve over time, as well as humans as humans typically do. But it all starts with admitting to yourself what you actually want, which is a scary process, because it might be that you maybe been lying to yourself. I know that when I first, before I started doing this, before I started applying it to all facets of my life, and maybe some that I'm not even aware of doing right now, I was just keeping myself in the dark. It's like, it doesn't, I'm not going to feel bad about not attaining something that I didn't say I even want to begin with. Of course, it's like, I wasn't even thinking about it. Doesn't matter. But my life would remain the same, of course. So, at the end of the day, yes, it is maybe a little bit short-term painful to realize that, maybe I'm not exactly where I want to be, but the enlightening factor, or at least the light at the end of the tunnel, should be, well, the only way to get there is to start here. And by starting here with just writing these down, now we can actually document this and see what works going forwards. And that's the way that I've found to really turn on the changing, the ever-changing, the ever-evolving process that we go through as humans from the start of our life to the end of our life. And I think that's a good place to shut this video off, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.